Ladies and gentlemen, we have some more news concerning the Maxwell GPUs. I honestly don't know how many videos I've put out with different specifications and rumors and goodness knows what else, because they always seem to be changing. However, now we've actually got some reasonably solid, he says, specs that have popped up and actually have been released by a Filipino store known as PCHUB. So the Philippine store has actually not only leaked some photos and other bits and pieces, they've actually put up some specs, but now some of it's been taken down and it's kind of floating around the internet. I'm not going to put images of the cards in this video. I'd love to, but quite frankly speaking, I don't want to be hit with a copyright strike, because apparently from what I'm hearing, Nvidia are not very happy about this. They basically called it a, and I quote, sneak peek, but Zotac, who are the ones that had the photos leaked, as well as Nvidia, are, well, pretty mad from what I'm hearing. So anyway, this design is actually really small. It's a dual fan design, but it's pretty tiny. To be honest, it's not really that impressive looking. If you've seen, say, the EVGA GTX 780s with the dual fan design, it looks very similar. Just basically make it smaller in your mind and you're pretty much there. Anyway, from what we're hearing, it's going to cost $399 US, so basically $400, which is, well, around the same price as the GTX 670-ish, I think. Now, the main meat of this is the specifications, and the GTX 970 is said to feature 1664 CUDA cores, a 256-bit memory bus with 4 gigs of RAM. Now, from what we can tell, the Jetstream, which is the palette overclocked version, has a clock speed, a core clock speed of 1152 megahertz. So that's 100 megahertz above the standard factory speed that Nvidia are putting out. So in other words, Nvidia's standard core clock speed is 1052 megahertz. So once again, just to reiterate, you're only getting a total of 1664 CUDA cores with this, which may seem a little low. Now, if we were to, say, talk about the bigger brother of the 970, which of course is the GTX 980, things get a bit more strange, because its CUDA core count is supposedly 1920, with once again a very similar type of base and boost clock. The real odd thing, however, is we're hearing reports that it only has 32 ROPs, but does have DirectX 12 support, although just how well supported it is, in other words, how many feature sets it actually supports of DirectX 12, is unknown. Because remember, Nvidia right now are actually calling even, say, the 740, the 740 GT, they're actually calling that a DX12 card. Which is technically true, it can run some of DirectX 12 feature sets, but then, of course, so can Intel CPUs and so can AMD CPUs. So I'm not criticizing Nvidia, I'm just saying that some of this stuff is still really up in the air. So an update to the performance reports as well, because we heard the original where Gibbo from OC UK, you may remember, was saying, well, it's that basically the 980s were not going to be replacing, say, the 780 Ti's. So logically, many people, including myself, came to the conclusion, well, that means that the 780 Ti's are most likely still going to be the faster cards. Synthetically, however, the 780's Ti's seem to be slightly behind the 980s, but I'm also hearing some other reports that actually indicate that the synthetics excuse me, don't mirror the real world games. Now, my gut feeling, however, is if we cut through all the jargon, all of the CUDA cores and all of that jazz, I don't particularly feel that Maxwell is going to be a revolution. It's going to be, well, cooler running, it's going to require less power, it's going to be a die shrink hopefully next year into the future, but this is not going to be like a 9800, or should I say a 9700 Pro from ATI back in the day. It's not going to be the 8800 GTX, which of course replaced Nvidia's very popular but slightly noisy 7800 series. Of course, the 8800 was pretty much a revelation in terms of how it dealt with a very unified kind of architecture. It was very, very good card, by the way. Well, back in the day, not so good now, but back then it was pretty awesome. This is certainly not going to be a Fermi situation, where of course the GTX 480, just for example, didn't run quite as fast as what Nvidia had hoped, and indeed actually had to have some of the CUDA cores disabled. It basically had 480, hence the name, rather than, I believe, it's 512. They basically disabled one of the SMXs. But we are in a situation where if you're a power user and you're thinking to yourself, well, I really want to go gee whiz, I really want to go for like a 780 or a 780 Ti, or an R9 290, or, you get the idea. And you're looking at these new cards. Unless you've got money burning in your pocket, I don't know if it's worth getting. Personally, I have a 780 Ti, and if these cards were like 20% faster, I don't know if I'd go with them. I mean, I don't think they would be 20% faster than a Ti's from what I'm hearing, but who the heck knows? Maybe in high resolutions, when you require that extra memory, particularly in SLI scaling of very high resolutions, just for example the triple monitor setup, or possibly 4K with certain games, if you go over the 3GB limits, particularly with high levels of, say, MSAA. But come on now, let's just be totally and utterly bluntly and truthfully honest. Are the cards living up to the expectations many people had? Well, I don't know. I think the cards have been in the air for so long, and there's been so much hype and excitement around the GPUs that it would have taken a lot to really have the cards live up. And to be fair, Nvidia never said that the cards were going to be a revolution. They always hinted that they were going to be focused on a reduction of power. And, they're going to be faster, of course, than the parts if you're looking for a part-to-part swap. So, for example, the 970 is going to be much faster than, say, the 770, of course. Well, not much faster, but faster. But the real key here is it's going to be a power reduction. Personally, once again, this is just my opinion based upon just hearing the rumors and seeing the specs and all of that stuff. My opinion hasn't really changed, unless you are really in the market for a new GPU and your GPU is really old, in which case go for the Maxwell. If on the other hand you've already got a decent setup, particularly if it's an SLI rig, is it worth you selling, say, a 780 twin SLI rig, or say a 780 Ti for this? I don't know, to be frankly honest. Maybe if you're really concerned about the power and the heat, but who knows? Frankly speaking, right now, I think the PC market is in a really, really volatile time. Like, DDR4 memory is just ludicrously high because, of course, it's just come out. You've got all these different technologies. And frankly speaking, I find it very hard to recommend these technologies because they're kind of carrying a price premium. That's not to say that they're bad, it's just that they're quite expensive for, quite honestly, for most people, not that great a deal of performance. That's not to say that Intel's, for example, the 5 series is bad, but once again, the point comes, if you're like a gamer, how much are you really going to need that in DDR4 right now? It's even stranger because you've got this situation where not only have you got like high screen displays, and funnily enough, Dell have actually released, I think it's a 5K monitor, or just about to release a 5K monitor, so who sodding knows how much power we're going to need for that. But of course you've got things such as the Oculus Rift, and I can tell you that that sucker requires some good juice to run it. I still actually need to finish my review of it, by the way. So it's just a bit weird. Personally speaking, I think that if you're in the market, get the Maxwells because it just makes sense. But if you've already got a good GPU setup and you could afford to wait, this is just based on rumor, I might tell you something completely different in 2 weeks' time. But if you could afford to wait, you might just be better to wait to see what AMD or what Nvidia do happen to bring out. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Take care and bye for now.